Hello, thank you for attending this webinar entitled Nutrition Label 101. My name is Julia Wilkins, and today we're going to talk about how to navigate and read a nutrition label so you can make healthy choices when it seems difficult to decide whether a food is considered healthy or not. We'll go through each part of the nutrition label, explain its significance, and help you figure out how that knowledge can apply to you and your daily diet. First, we have a question. Do you know who regulates and sets guidelines for the nutrition labels? Well, the answer is the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration. They're responsible for ensuring that food sold throughout the United States is safe, wholesome, and properly labeled. So this applies to foods sold in the United States as well as foods from foreign countries. And there are several other laws under the FDA that govern food products. The FDA requires most foods to bear nutrition labels and requires that these labels have nutrient content claims and certain health messages to comply with specific requirements. It's their responsibility to remain current with legalities and all new regulations, and then they require those of the food companies. You may have heard in the news that the FDA will be revamping the nutrition label. So we will show you these changes on the food label and then use that label for learning how to read a food label at your local grocery store or in your pantry. So before discussing the details of a food label, let's look at some of the changes you may see or may have already seen on them. The current food label, or the label that you're used to seeing, is over 20 years old. So in 2016, the FDA announced that by the end of July of 2019, all labels on all foods must be updated. And the goal of this is to increase knowledge of nutrients in food due to the growing chronic disease and obesity epidemic, and make labels easier for consumers to understand. So some of the new features are just a basic refreshed design. The iconic look of a label will stay the same, but the changes in calories, servings per container, and serving size will change font and size. As usual, manufacturers have to declare these amounts as well as their daily value of vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. They can voluntarily declare in grams or in percentages. The footnote at the bottom is also changing to better explain what daily percentage means. It will say the percent daily value tells you how much a nutrient in a serving of food contributes to your daily diet. 2,000 calories a day is used for general nutrition advice. The second new part of the nutrition label is reflecting updated information about nutrition science that we have learned over the last 20 years. So added sugars in grams and as a percent daily value will be included under the sugars, because scientific data shows that it's difficult to meet nutrition needs while staying within calorie limits if you consume more than 10% of your total daily calories from added sugar. Some other nutrients are being required to be on the label, and vitamins A and C will no longer be required, but companies can choose to include them. The area that talks about fat will change a little bit. It'll still have total fat and saturated fat. Trans fat will be required, but calories from fat will be removed because research shows that the type of fat is more important than the amount. The actual recommended daily values of some of the items will be updated to reflect the 2015-2020 dietary guidelines for Americans. And lastly, they're going to update serving sizes and labeling requirements for certain package sizes. Many of us have maybe seen that serving sizes are a little unrealistic. By law, serving sizes must be based on the amounts of food and beverages that people are actually eating, not what they should be eating. How much people eat and drink has changed since 1993. So, for example, the reference amount used to get a serving of ice cream used to be half a cup, but is now changing to 2/3 cup. We found that package sizes affect what people eat. So for packages that are between 1 and 2 servings, such as a 20 ounce of soda or 15-ounce can of soup, The calories and other nutrients will be required to be labeled as one serving because people typically consume it in one sitting. And all these changes are to help us better understand what we're consuming. We're going to go through the different components of a food nutrition label. This label is color coded to make it easy to explain, but usually when you see a nutrition label on a package, it's all the same color. So starting at the top of the label, we're going to talk about serving size information. Next, you'll see that you want to check the total calories per serving. In the white section, you'll see nutrients you want to limit. Next, you'll see the vitamins you want to make sure you get enough of in your daily diet. And lastly, check the daily percentage values for the nutrients contained in that food. We'll go over all of these things in detail. The top of the nutrition label dealt with servings. The serving size is, like it says, how big the serving is. These are given in familiar measurements to us, like cups, pieces, or ounces. Next, you're going to take a look at the servings per container. So one container does not always equal one serving size. Servings per container will tell you how many servings there are in that package. Remember, all the nutritional information on that label applies to one serving of food. So watch out, because a package of food often contains more than one serving, even though they're doing their best to update these food labels that may be consumed in one sitting. For example, if there are 2 servings on the label of your package of food and you eat the whole thing, you need to double everything on that food label, meaning doubling the calories, fat, and nutrients. This also works if you eat less. So if you're eating less than a serving size, you can cut that in half. This is very helpful if you're trying to cut out calories or lose weight. All nutrition facts are based on one serving. Always compare servings to what you are actually eating. This is another thing to look at if you're comparing food labels between brands of the same food. Next on your food label is calories. We talked about serving sizes, so you want to look at the number of calories per serving. Also, just because something says that it's fat-free or has 0 fat doesn't mean that it has 0 calories. If a product usually has fat in it, but you see a fat-free version, oftentimes to add flavor or texture, sugar is added instead. So be careful of fat-free items. In the middle of the label, you will see nutrients that you want to limit, like total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, and sodium. Did you know that fat has double the calories per gram than carbs or protein? Carbohydrates and protein have 4 calories of fat per gram, but fat has 9 calories per gram. We often say everything in moderation, but trans fat is actually a fat that you don't want to consume at all. So choose foods that have 0 grams of trans fat. Saturated fat is a fat that should be limited. You don't have to cut it out of your diet, but limit it. This fat comes from animal products. Sodium is another word for salt. So limit sodium intake to about 1,500 milligrams per day. Surprisingly, this is equal to about half a teaspoon, so that's not really a lot. Eating too much of these things can increase your risk of certain chronic diseases such as heart disease, some cancers, and high blood pressure. To help reduce your risk of heart disease, use the nutrition label to select foods low in saturated fat, have no trans fat, and are low in cholesterol. To help lower cholesterol, replace salt, fat, and trans fat with mono and polyunsaturated fats that are now on some labels. These are found in fish, nuts, and liquid oils. Limiting sodium can also help lower the risk of high blood pressure. Other parts of the food label to watch for are total carbohydrates and sugars. You'll see that total carbohydrates is made up of dietary fiber and sugars. Dietary fiber is the part of food that can't be broken down during digestion. It plays an important role in keeping your system in working order. Sugars, on the other hand, include all the natural sugars, and then you can see right below that they've added the added sugars separately. Fiber and sugar are types of carbohydrates, and healthy sources like fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains can reduce the risk of heart disease and improve digestion. You always want to look for whole grains listed as the first ingredient below, and we'll talk about the ingredient list in a minute. Whole wheat, brown rice, whole oats are all examples of what you want to see in that ingredient list. On the right side of the nutrition label, you see percentage of daily values. There isn't one for sugar, but you can compare the sugar content among products to see which has the lower amount. So limit food with any added sugars that add calories but not any positive nutrients. If you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, it's important to look at the total carbohydrates, not just the sugars. Right under the carbohydrates section, you'll see protein. Choose ones that are low in saturated fat above and that are lean. Most Americans get plenty of protein, but it's not always the best source. When choosing a food based on protein content, choose meat, beans, milk, and those that are lean, low fat, or fat free. Where there's an animal protein, there will also be fat and cholesterol. So watch out for those numbers on the nutrition label and the serving sizes. The protein needs for each person are different, so it's based on gender, physical activity, and weight. But usually we get enough in our diet. Now we'll talk about healthy nutrients that you want to make sure you're getting in your food choices. Not only is the nutrition label able to help you to see the things that you should cut out of your diet, but it can help you add nutrients that promote good health and protect you from disease. We talked about dietary fiber, which helps your digestive system. So look for foods rich in that area. Also look for vitamin A and C if the label has it, B, calcium, and iron. Eating a variety will help you reach your goal of 100%. Increasing the amount of all those vitamins and minerals in your diet can promote good health. Some Americans don't get enough of these vitamins and minerals, so you can compare brands with the higher amount, and those are usually the best option. Try to get the biggest bang for your buck in your food product. I've talked about the percentage of daily values a few times. You'll see it on the right side of the nutrition label. All of these percentages are based off a 2,000 calorie diet, but many eat more or less than that per day. So it really depends on your age, physical activity level, and other factors. So talk to your healthcare provider to see what calorie level is right for you. But the percentage of daily values are a general guide to help you link nutrients to food that contribute to your total daily diet. The percent of daily value is a general guide to help you link nutrients in a serving of food to their contribution to your total daily diet. It can help you determine if a food is high or low in a nutrient. For example, you'll know obviously that 5% is less or low and 20% would be high in that vitamin or mineral. You can use the percent daily value to make dietary trade-offs with other foods throughout the day. The little star that you see is a reminder that the percent daily value is based on that 2,000 calorie diet. Once you're familiar with these percentages, you can use it to compare foods and decide which is a better choice for you. This is a way to kind of balance things out throughout the day. Lastly, on a nutrition label, you'll see the ingredients at the very bottom. But don't overlook this. It's really as important as the values above. The way that an ingredients list works is that the biggest ingredients are those listed at the top or the beginning of the list. So beware of foods that start out with sugars like sugar, corn syrup, and sucrose, fats, and oils like vegetable oil and soybean oil, and salt. If these ingredients appear early in the ingredients list, the food is probably not a good choice and is high in bad nutrients. The shorter the list, the better. In many cases, the longer an ingredient list, the less natural and good for you the food is because it has a lot of additives. Look for foods that have a short ingredient list with natural and familiar sounding ingredients. If the ingredients are nothing but chemical names that are really long, that don't look familiar, the food might be one that you want to skip. This is also a way to look out for things that you might be allergic to that you won't find in the upper part of the nutrition label. When you're grocery shopping, you might see products that say fat-free or low-calorie, for example. You may think, hey, this is a healthy product. But ask yourself, what does that really mean? Let's go over the truth about some of the food advertisements. For example, if your food claims to be calorie-free, it doesn't mean it has 0 calories. How does that even make sense? It actually means that it has less than 5 calories per serving. So if that product has 3 servings and you eat it all, you're actually consuming 15 calories. Add that up product after product, and that could really go out of your range of the amount of calories that you want to eat in a day. Sugar-free and fat-free mean fewer than half a gram per serving. Low fat has 3 grams or less per serving, while reduced fat has less than 25% less fat than the regular product. Would you remember all these details when you're grocery shopping? Probably not. You would just be drawn in by the front of the product that says low fat or fat free. My favorite on this list is lean and extra lean. They actually both mean the same thing, fewer than 10 grams of fat. But which would you buy based on the advertising if they were side by side? Probably extra lean. So it's very important to not be drawn in by the advertising on the front of the package, because these claims have specific definitions that might not be what they seem. So now that you know more about nutrition labels, let's do an exercise. We're going to go down the label and look at each section. We're going to look at serving size, servings per container, calories, and total fat. So what is the serving size of this product? Well, the serving size is 1 cookie. And how many servings are in this container? There are 8 servings in this container. The amount of calories per serving or per cookie are 150. And the total fat per serving or per cookie is 10 grams. And if you're still thinking about how % daily value applies to you, think about this. 5% or less of a vitamin mineral is considered a poor choice. 10 to 20% is actually considered a good source of that nutrient. More than 20 is a great source of that nutrient. So now you're even more ready to take on the Nutrition Label 101 challenge. All packaged foods are required to display a standardized nutrition label. So pick any food from your kitchen or your pantry, and you can complete the activity with that food label. Fill in the nutrition label on the worksheet provided and answer all the questions. If you have any questions regarding this webinar or the challenge, please contact us at healthydirections@hne.com. We hope you're able to take this knowledge into the world and to the grocery store and make healthier choices for you and your family. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.